I don't think I've ever had fun with an audio interface before, but I am actually having fun with this thing. Let me introduce you to the Antelope Audio Zenith 2. By the way, yes, Antelope Audio did send me this for a review, but I've also been kind of helping them with some of their software development. We'll get into that in a second, but none of this has anything to do with the review and they have no say in it. But let's get something out of the way. This isn't just like all the other interfaces being released around this price point. This thing comes with some actual professional stuff inside of it, mainly those preamps. And no, this isn't a slight against those other entry-level offerings that offer wild gain numbers and a wild set of features for everyone from podcasters to musicians. This is more of a classic musician's interface with some of those perks that other interfaces are now coming with. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm going to explain all of that as we go along, so let's jump into the build. This thing is a bit of a tank. It's an all-metal construction. The knobs are two different kinds. Now, first you have these gain knobs, which are kind of throwback gain knobs. It's kind of fitting since these are both analog controls, not digital. Now, it's not always the case, but you can generally tell by the pot having a termination point or a point where it stops turning. Again, not always the case, but when you have a knob that just turns and turns and turns and turns, those tend to be digital encoders, like you have down here for both the headphone controls, as well as this large encoder that controls your monitors, as well as changing the settings for your DSP. Now, you can see where they did save a bit of money, and that would be on the switches. Not switches that are going to get a lot of working out, I'm guessing, so it is fine. The switches on top of the unit, though, tend to have a bit more quality in them, and they do feel better. The rear of this unit is about as basic as it gets, but there's one surprise on the right side of the box, and that is MIDI I/O. Very cool. Now, as for those preamps, both inputs are the same as the ones you will find on their flagship Orion unit that they sell, meaning that these are legit fantastic preamps and converters. Okay, then with that, let's jump into the specs on this thing. So we're going to keep this relatively brief for those of us who fall asleep to specs. Go to this time code in the video if you want to skip them. However, this thing does have some interesting interpretations of their specs. First is 75 dB of gain. That is true, but that also includes 20 dB of digital gain that you need to apply in the menus. So if you rock up with an SM7B, don't be surprised if it doesn't sound like 75 dB of gain. Next is 32-bit and 192 kilohertz. And no, I don't mean 32-bit float. This is 32-bit fixed integer. Now, I'm not going to get into what that means, but let's just say it allows digital control of the signal without any loss of quality, i.e. DSP. This isn't the get-out-of-jail-free card that 32-bit float is, so don't get excited. You still have to properly set your gain to avoid clipping with this thing. Now, it also does go up to 192 kilohertz for sample rate, and that's awesome. Now, when I first got the gear, there were some hiccups, but they have been taking care of those hiccups as soon as they come up. In fact, they release new drivers and software just for me to play with. And honestly, this has completely changed a lot of how I view this unit. Literally, I had a whole review planned and ready, and then this software that is still in development changed everything. So then, let's get into that. And just an FYI, some of the stuff I'm going to be showing you isn't available to anyone else at the time of shooting this video. But let's start with the hardware controller, which is available. This is basically the whole operation, which is in this menu system. Whether it's voice or instrument, you can basically apply anything that is available in here. You navigate through the system between these two buttons and this big knob. And I'm not going to lie, this kind of sucks. It's easy to get lost in there, annoying jumping between settings. It's just clunky. And honestly, my first shot at this, I was going to include that as in my final findings. And voila, fun unit, bit clunky, still fun though. And here's where we get into the stuff that isn't available as of yet. That is this software, and it's all here. So this is the DSP, and as we were talking about earlier, you do have these voice controls, and you notice I turn this on and instantly I sound different. Now, you have the crisp controls, you have warm controls, you have Pro Voice, and then you have Clear Talk. And one of the things I don't like about this, as I mentioned before, is this noise reduction. I do not like this. It cuts into the voice way too much. I've never been a fan of noise reduction. I've never been a fan of any gating. So this is a bit of a no for me. Yeah, I mean, you can play with this and you can do as you see fit, but I'm not a big fan. However, when you go into the studio controls, this is awesome. So you've got this high pass filter. I've got it off at 100, but you can move this around. And you can on and off this as well. Then you have the leveling amplifier or compressor. You've also got this as a limiter as well. And you dial this in with the amount of output gain. Woo. There we go. We can bring that back down again. And the peak reduction. So how much you want those peaks reduced. Once again, you can turn this off and on right here. And you can hear the differences as this kicks in and out. Next is a de-esser. And this is kind of cool because you have a dual band or a single band. I prefer dual band. Where it's going to be hitting, so the frequency that it's going to be hitting at, 5 kilohertz. You can also move this down to 4. I have this pretty gentle. It's only at 6 dB, but when you turn it up, and you'll be able to test it on and off. So S, you can really hear it kicking in there. Keeping that about 6 dB because I don't really like to really stomp out all of the S sounds. Next, you have the MG4 Plus. Now, this is a high shelf, basically a high frequency shelf. You can pick the frequencies that you want to attack. So 11K is up here, and then the amount of gain you're adding to that shelf. So how much are you really boosting that shelf up? This is a nice way, probably even if you're using this for a guitar, if you want a really nice clean sound, this is probably going to help you out with that. Anyways, this is with everything on and this is with everything off. It actually does make quite a difference. Now, if you like all these studio effects, but you don't really like how much work it is to dial it all in, there are presets here that will impact those studio presets. So you can go for balance, you can go for the DS, you can go for presence, or you can just stay with the custom and you can stick with this here. You will notice that DS though, holy crap, does it ever stomp down on your S's. Anyways, now let's move over to the guitar. All right, I do have a weird buzz on my guitar. Don't mind that. But first up, we have the gate. There we go. That's nice to get rid of the buzz. Bring that up a little bit more. So there, we can get rid of that buzz quite a bit. Okay, so next we're going to go into the compressor. This you can make as aggressive as you want for your guitar. Yeah, 100 to 1, that's not a good idea. 4 to 1, let's go 8 to 1. Output gain, this is why I'm so loud at the moment. And your threshold of where it's going to kick in, neg 24. Now we have it going through distortion as well here. But you can change this up. You got overdrive. You also have a fuzz. Wow. Let's gain that down just a little bit. Let's bring this down just a little bit more. Maybe put this output gain down a little bit. There we go. Neg 14. Okay, so out of all these, you of course have all the controls that you would want. But in here you have all the different amps. And again, I don't know if that's supposed to sound like an orange amp, but that's what that is. And again, you do have all the controls here. Metal box. What does this one sound like? How about we turn the output down? Damn. That is just chuggy. Ugh, it's mids. Oh yeah, take the mids down there. Put some high end on that. See what happens when you got a little bit of less mids and some high. Yeah, it's a little better. It's very reminiscent of like the Metal Zone. It's a little too much. Rock 30. It's just... a little too much high end on that. Anyways, you can kind of see here all of the effects you can get on this. Now, if we're going to take this off here and we're going to go into studio, we're just going to see kind of what this stuff does. Let's give this a whole bunch of high end. So this does give you actually a pretty nice sound. So there you go. This is kind of the breakdown of everything you can get in the studio effects between the... Oh, you do have presets here too. What do we got for instrument 1? What about instrument 2? Oh, wow. Gain that up a little bit. So yeah, lots of fun to be had with this, and especially when you have this software. Now, when I'm looking at this, sometimes you just have to remind yourself that this is an entry-level piece of gear, because what you get here is amazing. But I do wish it had just a touch more. Really the only things are DSP, including reverb and delay. Now, I can't imagine my signal path without those when I'm playing guitar, so it is a bit weird to not see the options. Now, I have no idea if that's something that can be added with later firmware, but yeah, that would be awesome. Also, there's one little quirk here. When you're monitoring your voice, for some reason the mic monitoring is super low. Now, I know it's low because the guitar monitoring can get to ear-splitting levels. At first, I thought it was a headphone out, but it isn't. So make sure when you're setting your levels, until this is fixed, you're going to have to test out your gain levels in a DAW to see where they stand. Now, you can use the meters in the app as well, but I always like to see the output in a DAW just to be sure. Otherwise, you may end up with way too much and end up peaking. Now, honestly, this interface is a ton of fun. There's a ton of things to play with, and you can get some awesome sound out of it. And for its price, it is a pretty easy recommendation if you're looking for a great guitar and voice starter. Not to mention, the DSP is fantastic. Word to the wise though, this thing can't host VSTs, so this is one of the limitations of having an entry-level unit. But for the cost and the amount of fun that's in it, hell yeah. And if you're hanging on waiting for the app to come out, check it out down below. Once it becomes available to everyone, I'm going to pin a comment down below. So, cheers guys, and thanks for watching.